listening to Out of the Box with Rosie Tran. Out of the Box is sponsored by hugmetease.com. Spread love, give a hug, hugmetease.com. Guys, I just want to thank all of you for the positive emails that I've been receiving. And I just want to reiterate that I love positive emails, but what I would love even more is if you guys went on iTunes.com, Out of the Box podcast, and left those as positive comments. Those help out the podcast so much more than sending me an email. And as well with the Twitter ads, guys, tweeting at me and say, Rosie, I would love for you to come to St. Louis is awesome, but it doesn't help me to come to St. Louis. So if you would tweet at me and the local comedy club, whether it's the Funny Bone or Laughs or whatever's in your neighborhood, then that would help bring me to your city even more than tweeting directly at me. So I appreciate that. Guys, we're now on SoundCloud and Stitcher. Go on soundcloud.com/outoftheboxpodcast and click on the follow button. We don't have that many followers on SoundCloud and it looks really, really sad. So that would help us out so much. And as always, I am excited today because I have an amazing guest. He is a comedian, world traveler, travel host, and host of the Travel Tales podcast, Mike Siegel. Mike,
Hello.
How are you?
Good to be here. I feel great. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I like your theme song, by the way. What band is that?
That is my husband's band, which is now defunct, and they didn't even have a name.
Maybe that was part of the problem. Maybe a name helps in the booking of that.
It was him and his coworker, and they decided to start a band. And so I said, well, you guys have to do the theme song for Out of the Box podcast. They did it, and then his coworker ended up moving to a different company. My husband works in the video game industry, another video game company, and then they just didn't have time to see each other, and the band fizzled away.
So you kind of broke up the band, is what you're saying.
I'm the
Way to go, Yoko.
I'm the Yoko Ono of unnamed band.
All right, I see what's happening here. This is nice. And I got to meet your dogs.
You did, and I feel so bad because you're had to pump drugs just to come over.
Yeah, no, I'm all clearing it up. And by the way, thank you tweakers out there for ruining buying cold medicine or
Is it hard to
medicine.
buy Claritin?
Oh God, I got to show my ID now. You got to, anything with it was pseudoephedrine or something.
Is that for making meth?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why you got to show they lock it behind, they don't have it on the shelf anymore. You got to go to the pharmacist.
You totally
got to show your ID. Yeah, no. I wore a suit here for you.
I know. I was going to say, just so you guys know, Mike is in a full suit.
No, not well. I left the jacket and tie in the car, but I have to go to audition after this. That's why.
And I hope you get it.
Thank you.
Yes.
I had the craziest. This is a total Hollywood story, but I had a Three Musketeers audition yesterday.
For the candy bar?
For the candy bar. Don't want to brag. That's where it's at now, folks. That's where I'm at in this business. But no, I've over the years I've done commercial stuff, and it's a nice way to pay the bills if it happens. So this was so I get the break. Did you go out on commercial auditions?
I do.
Okay.
So I usually go out for very stereotypical stuff, though. What is your stereotype that they typecast you as?
Well, now I'm starting to get this thing. The reason I'm wearing a suit for is like in a progressive insurance commercial. Uh-huh. So they're doing like a takeoff on The Bachelorette.
Okay.
So I'm like the host of The Bachelorette, that kind of thing, which is perfect for me. They actually asked for hosts, which is what I do mostly. So I was like, okay, great. So this is a callback today, so it's very exciting. But yesterday they sent out something in the audition, the call sheet, and it said there's Three Musketeers. You have to do accents. They wanted like a French accent.
Okay.
Okay. Comedy guys.
D'Artagnan.
Yeah. They wanted comedy guys. And then the note from the casting director said, if you can wear something musketeerish, would love it! Exclamation point. And I'm like, oh no.
Did any guys show up in a musketeerish? You gotta
first
tell
of all,
me.
I'm thinking like, okay, some jackass actor is gonna come in full costume.
With a
right?
feathered hat.
Totally, right? So I go there and there's like 15 guys there, and thankfully nobody
was musketeered out.
Nobody's, but we had a couple puffy shirts, like the Seinfeld puffy shirt.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And it was mostly about facial hair. It was like a lot of groomed beards and goatees and that kind of thing. So I'm thinking, okay, this is, and I just wore like jeans and t-shirt or something. What am I gonna?
That's not musketeering, Mike.
I know. I don't have any. Do you have anything musketeer? What would you wear?
I don't get those auditions.
I'm not gonna.
I'm in a weird age because I'm not old enough to be young mom yet, but I'm not young enough to be college student.
You can totally play college student.
It's weird. So when I go to the auditions, I'm like in the in between. But
you look 18.
Oh, Mike, move in with me.
Not the dogs can't do it.
That's right. You can't.
There's not enough Claritin in the world. Oh yeah, that.
And I'm married. But I get college student, like brainy, nerdy college student, a lot of Asian-y type things.
Computer programmer, violinist.
I
What
do.
else?
I get a lot of Asian-y things, and then I get a lot of auditions. Do you speak another language? And they usually, I think I've gone for a couple things where it says Chinese only, and then my agent will say, well, she doesn't speak Chinese, and they're like, that's fine.
Right. Not that we tell her. She can just say anything.
Just say anything. Nobody knows if it's Chinese or not.
So, Tran, are you Vietnamese?
I'm Vietnamese.
Okay.
Yeah, but I have gone out for that. So I think once I age a little, which is weird, you would think in Hollywood you want to be young, then I will be able to go for young mom.
Young mom stuff, yeah.
And that's good. That's supposedly where the money is, because like half the commercials are like Swiffer commercials and mop commercials and all this stuff. So fingers crossed that I get some gray hairs or something.
Well, I'll still get weird. I'll get like young dad stuff. But now I'm getting, as I get older, I'll go in, and I don't have any kids, and I've never had kids, but it still feels very weird when I go in. And I went on one. It was like a cereal thing, and then I go in there, and I have this teenage daughter.
They have these fake kids for you.
Yeah. You'll read with these kids, and I'm like, this just. I know it's physically possible for me to have a kid like about to go to college, but it still feels really weird. It feels little kids is one thing, but
like a college kid.
Yeah, it's just it's like I'm not ready for that. I know.
I'm not ready for acting like I have a college
kid.
It
just makes me feel so old. It really just makes me feel old.
Well,
but anyway, just to finish the Three Musketeers thing.
Yeah,
so I
you
get
didn't
there,
finish. We got sidetracked.
and I do my thing, and then I leave. So there's all these guys there, and facial hair, some flowery shirts or whatever. And I was like, okay, at least my faith in humanity is restored. There wasn't some guy in full costume. I walk out of the building. I get to the sidewalk.
There was a guy in full costume?
Around the corner, full on. I mean, perfect. I mean, it was a musketeer guy, right down to his facial hair.
He had a little goatee with the pointy, pointy anonymous.
Everything, the feather in the hat, the whole deal. And I was like, oh, no, this town, I swear to God. And I was just like, I hope he didn't rent it. You do this long enough, you don't spend a dime on a first call of an audition or any audition.
You know what bugs me? Because I always hear the story. I've been to casting workshops and other things, and casting directors say you don't need to go all out. You just need to have the vibe of whatever, right? But then sometimes you'll hear the story. Oh, this person got the job because they went all out. It's like, what? It's contradictory information.
Or they never got called back because they went all out.
Or
and
they
it looked
got banned.
creepy. Yeah, it looked really creepy. I once read an article, like this Playboy article with George Clooney when he was just starting to hit.
Yeah.
And he actually told a story like that. And there's some truth in the fact that, he started booking things a lot because he was famously did like 12 pilot or series before he ever got ER.
Right?
And he was that guy who got cast and everything but never took off.
Yeah.
But
until now.
Yeah, now he's doing just fine. But he said he started booking things when he just did wild shit and he just like swung for the fences, and sometimes he was way wrong. And
Where
you gotta
is
be
your
able
musketeer costume?
I know, but I draw the line. Come on. They did ask me, the first thing they asked me, are you willing to grow a beard? I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. But there's 50 guys outside with beards already. I'm sure they'll probably get it.
So you said when he really swung for the fences and sometimes he missed and they were like, get away from us, you're scary, or what?
Yeah, he said sometimes they just thought he was weird. He would bring like props into auditions and things like that and just make huge choices.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you do that, you're going to be wrong.
Out.
You're going to be wrong, but you got to be willing to be wrong, but I guess he had enough, and I guess being, a good actor and crazy good looking helped a bit as well.
But I mean, I don't think that is necessarily true in Hollywood, because I know some people who are extremely successful and they're not the best looking.
No,
there's a lot of good looking people in the city.
Oh, absolutely. No. You have to be good, especially to have any kind of length in your career. There's tons of good looking people. That's when people. I remember I talked to somebody they were talking about. I think it was Brad Pitt, who I think is great. I think he's a really good actor. And Tom Cruise. No, it was Tom Cruise he was talking about. And some guy said, no, he's a terrible actor. And it's like, no, you can't be a bad actor and have a 30, 40-year career. You can't, there's a lot of good-looking people.
Yeah.
You can turn on a soap opera and see the most beautiful people, but they're not a star. And there's something about also, like, just some people just jump off the screen. You can't take your eyes off them.
They do, and I've actually seen, I was in a short film and I saw an actress and she actually looked very, very plain in person. And when the camera was on her,
yeah,
like it was just something really weird where I looked at her in the director's screen and I looked at her in real life and it was like she was like 10 times more radiant. I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah, some people just got that thing, you know. You see Julia Roberts in person and it's just you don't get it. I don't get it. And I was never a big fan of her, but something about her when she on screen, she just jumps off. You're like, who's that? Who's that person? Yeah.
So you're like the young dad. And
yeah, I'm getting that now.
I noticed you play a lot of kind of like military roles.
I had a lot of it. Yeah, I was that guy in the dark suit. I was like a Secret Service guy in 24. In Traffic, I was like a DEA agent. Some guy in the dark suit, basically, which is what I've got today.
That's what you got.
Guy
in
dark suit today. Yeah,
things never change.
Yeah, stereotyping. So you know about stereotyping.
It is. It's
so when did your parents? See, I'm a travel.
Are you in podcast mode?
I am.
This is not the Travel Tales podcast.
I want to know about.
Stop questioning me
Vietnam.
right now. You can ask me about Vietnam when you're
on
good,
my show.
When you're good and proper, and you invite me on your travel.
I did.
You need to court me.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
You can't just ask me questions on my own podcast. I'm asking you questions.
All right, I'm along for the ride here.
All right.
Fire away.
You're like, tell me about Vietnam. But I did see that on your Travel Tales website that you're standing very sexily against a Vietnamese writing.
Yeah, and you can tell me what that means. I was in an alley. That was in Saigon. A friend of mine who was a photographer. I was hanging out with a very talented photographer, Nana Chen. She lives there, and she does a lot of commercial
And she didn't tell you what it meant?
No, I was in the alley. We were just walking around an alley shooting photos.
I'll have to look it back up after and see. I think it said something with a cat.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's like, this white guy's an asshole. What?
Yeah. Delicious cat is on special today.
That you're posting up against.
But I should know what that says because it's on my...
your website, on your marketing.
I just like the photo.
I looked at it. I was like, oh, there's Vietnamese writing on his website. And I know how to read it.
Oh, good. Please, let me know what it says. It says that.
It's like, after
white
mama.
guy asshole, stand here.
I'm jealous. I've never been to Vietnam yet.
Are you kidding?
I have tried to go back 3 or 4 times now, and every single time. So, not to talk about me on my own podcast, but my dad was a anti-communist journalist back in the day, so he's very paranoid about going back. And he went back. One of his best friends went back and got kidnapped.
Oh my God!
And so my dad was paranoid about going back and getting kidnapped because that happened to a colleague of his. And he went back for my grandmother's funeral, and I wanted to go back, and he was like, oh, what if I get kidnapped, blah, blah, blah. So they didn't want me to go. And then my mom and my sister went, and I was on the road, and I couldn't get out of an obligation, so I didn't go. And then I think they went again. Like, they've gone 3 times. I'm like, no!
Take me. I did like it. I've been there a couple times, and so I liked it a lot.
You're more Vietnamese than I am.
Yeah, exactly. Except I can't read the writing on my page. No, but did they come over after the 75 when it all...
Why are you interviewing me?
I want to know.
Why?
I'm curious. Because you know what? I'm trying to dig a little deeper into Rosie. That sounds weird. That sounds awesome.
They did. My parents were the first Vietnamese couple to be married in the U.S., and they had this big article in the Washington Post when they got married, and they had it framed, and now they're divorced. So the newspaper article...
First Vietnamese failed marriage. That's great. Pioneers in Vietnamese divorce in America.
They were the first couple to be married here ever. I don't know about maybe the first to be divorced that were married, obviously.
Right.
And so they had this Washington Post article that they had framed, which is now in my mom's closet under a bunch of...
Big X over your dad's face.
And they were married on July 4th. So it was like this true American sweetheart story, and then now it's in the back box. Yeah.
It's very weird going around Vietnam because it's as an American, because it's, we're so used to going places. Like you go through Europe and they talk about, you see these remnants of the war and all this and stuff, and then we were kind of on the good side of that and the winning side of that, and then you go to Vietnam and it's just like, we lost here, and I kind of, you get to know, you kind of feel like how Germans must feel touring Europe, and you say, well,
like,
and they show these ruins of this building, and
this is where we defeated the evil Nazis,
and they'll go, this was destroyed in the war, and the Germans are back there, sorry. And the same thing in Vietnam. I went to this Hue, I guess it's Hue. Is
Yes, in the middle of the country. Right?
Yeah, and there's this big fortress, and it was all wood, and it was like a palace and all this stuff. And it's like, this is where everything used to be. And it's like, this was destroyed in the American War, and I'm just in the back going, sorry.
It wasn't me.
Yeah, I know. But
I was too young.
Yeah. But
I
it's
am
a
a
cool
young
place to
dad.
go.
Don't you guys know I'm a young dad?
Yeah. Who's casting here? You need a musketeer? Because I'm your man.
So you said you had a pretty big year this year. You climbed Mount Kilimanjaro.
I did. Yeah. That was on my own. I've been starting to do some more like travel writing for some other sites and things like that on my own. But,
now, did you get into travel? I don't mean to cut you off. Did you get into travel through stand-up or just because you like traveling?
Well, no. I had never left the country till I got out of college, and I did the kind of like the stereotypical 6-week backpacking thing around Europe, Did
you stay in hostels?
Oh, yeah, I did the whole thing.
Did someone try to murder you?
No, but tried to steal my stuff. I had, yeah, you always get the people that are up all night, some people throwing up, just playing techno music and some weird Dutch guy.
Or something.
Yeah. And some crazy Australians or whatever. It was just a great experience. But I'd never been out of the country and just kind of opened my eyes to like the world and kind of like, oh my God.
And you're a typical Midwest boy, right?
Yeah. I grew up in Chicago. And I had never been out of the country until that time. And so I was like, oh my God, this is cool. And I just kind of dug it. And I always vowed that, if I ever had the chance, I was going to take trips whenever I could. So then I started doing stand-up, and I was on the road for years, and I went all over the country, and that kind of taught me how to travel alone.
Traveling for stand-up, I feel, is different than traveling. I know when I'm traveling for stand-up, I love, obviously, seeing anything local, but I feel like it's a job, kind of.
Yeah, I mean...
Whereas when I'm on vacation, I'm like, ooh, vacation mode!
Right. Well, I started doing things like during the day, because, stand-up, you had 23 hours of the day to kill, and especially you're in small-town Iowa, and so I ended up, in the summer, you'd play golf or something. Well, that could kill a day. You go to the mall. There's always a mall somewhere. You'd see a lot of movies. But then if there was anything interesting around, I'd try to go see that. Like I remember I would do things like take a brewery tour somewhere, or I would go to the Bowling Hall of Fame in St. Louis or something. Just something to break it up. But what it did, it was, it's not like traveling with a band. You're always alone. And so you have to learn how to go to movies alone, to restaurants alone, to get around,
Obviously,
and so,
you're not a very friendly person, Mike. What about the other two comics on the show?
They're not in the car with you for 8 hours. Where did you start? Did you start stand-up out here? Or?
I started in New Orleans, and there's actually a little scene bubbling there now. There
never was. New Orleans is one of those cities that comedy just did not fly.
Comedy is cursed in New Orleans.
Yeah.
We had an improv which closed. Actually, the improv.
I remember that improv.
The improv comedy chain is actually headquartered in New Orleans because it was owned by Al Copeland Industries, who owns Copeland's Restaurants and Popeyes, or did own Popeyes. Restaurants.
It's so sad that it's like Comedy Inc. That's the most corporate.
Comedy
They've
and
been
Popeyes.
bought out by Viacom, and then, we have shoe stores and comedy clubs, and we make asbestos.
So the improv chain was actually based in New Orleans, but there was no comedy club there. And then there was a couple comedy clubs there. When I started, there was a comedy club there called the Joke Gym, which went under, and there was another comedy club called, I don't know, there's been 10 or 20 comedy clubs, and they've all failed miserably.
They've just never been able to make it in that town. Even at the riverboats, right?
They can't do it because a lot of comedy clubs, they are a tourist attraction, but they're also mostly catered to locals. In New Orleans, there's so many things to do. Every weekend there's a jazz fest or a crawfish festival.
All music and food.
Music and live music every night, and you can, go into a place and there's a world famous jazz musician playing. So it just was really hard.
Yeah. I get it, because if I'm in New Orleans, the last thing I think about is going to a comedy club. I'm eating and we're going to see music. You're doing anything else,
and you want to walk on the street with your hurricane and go to a strip club or something fun. And so comedy did not do well. Even the improv at Harris, it did not do well because people want to gamble and go out and party and so now there's kind of an indie scene there. There's a independent comedy festival there. When I started, we had a comedy festival called the New Orleans Comedy Festival that went on for 10 years, but it was more just for the comics. It's like we would bring in a headliner from LA and have show like just the same bar shows that we did.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't really a comedy festival. There was like one booker from that booked like one-nighters that came. It was like the industry.
Right. Tom Sobel coming in from Kentucky or something.
Yeah, we have industry here.
Yeah, exactly.
And So I actually then moved out here, which I think was a mistake. I think I should have gone Chicago, New York first.
Yeah, I was really glad I started in Chicago. I mean, there was a lot of clubs. Of course, I got into like the tail end of the comedy boom of the 80s. You know, it's like right at the butt. That's how I do.
Everyone's
that.
Like leaving. You're like, I'm here, guys.
Yes, it really was like that. There was this first wave of guys that had gone to LA, and then, but there was a lot of work. I think when I was starting out, there was about 14 full-time comedy clubs between the city and the suburbs.
Wow,
so there was
that's a lot.
There was a place to get on stage every night as an open mic or whatever, just to get stage time, which is everything when you're starting.
Yeah.
So, and within about 6 months, half of those clubs had closed. And there was a recession. It was the early 90s. And so a lot of them closed, but a lot of them had to close. There was just too many. It was saturated. Yeah. And there was a lot of bad comics working, so that helped kill it. There was a lot of reasons that helped kill it, but that was one of them.
Thanks, bad comics.
Yeah, they just spread them too thin. And but still, it's a very supportive community. We were all about kind of just being funny. There was no real industry around, so you were never worried that there's an agent in the crowd, or we were just a bunch of young people trying to be funny. And so there was this kind of interesting. There was like the stand-up crowd, but in Chicago, improv is even bigger.
Yeah.
So Second City is just this monster industry, and the offshoots of the Improv Olympic and all these. There was an improv group on every corner, And I remember I started out with a lot of those guys from the UCB, and I remember those times. But it was all about just
back
being
in the
funny.
Day.
But it really was. I mean, at that time, like Tina Fey and Steve Carell were at Second City, and we used to hang out in the same bars, the after hours bars, right down there by those clubs, and it was great. So but at least you need a place to be bad. And you just need time.
Yeah, and I think LA is a really bad place to go when you're so young because the scene out here is not supportive at all.
It's not supportive. There's not a lot of stage time. You're fighting for
with like celebrities,
with a million other people,
and celebrities for stage time.
Yeah, and there could be somebody in the crowd who sees you before you're even ready. And they move on to run a comedy division of a studio, and they're like, oh, I remember that Rosie. She's not that good.
Please don't use my name in this example.
Yeah, okay. But you know what I mean? Yeah. No, it happened to me. Even though I had been, this was in terms of casting, not so as much comedy, but I guess in a little bit of comedy too. That I came out here. I went from Chicago to New York, and I was in New York for about a year and a half, which was a great move as well, I think, because it's just by that time I was doing stand up full time. And I was doing a lot of colleges, so there was a lot of work on the East Coast. There's just a lot more comedy work on the East Coast, and it's really close. It's really close together. I mean,
there's 20 different states shoved together.
Like when I'm in the Midwest, for us, it was nothing for us to drive like 7-8 hours to go work. Like I would drive to Omaha, which is about, and like Minneapolis was 6.5 hours. Omaha was about 7.5. Detroit was about 4.5. You knew exactly. Indy was 3. So I knew how to get...
Indy's 3 hours from New York?
From Chicago.
Oh, from Chicago.
No, from Chicago. These are all,
where are you going?
These are all Chicago times and distances. But you knew how to get... And that's what we would do. But then I got to New York, and for the New York guys, like going to Boston was like, you're going all the way to Boston? I was like, it's just 4 hours. That's nothing. To them, that was a way out of town.
They didn't want to leave the city.
They didn't leave the city or like Long Island or Connecticut or, anything you can take
the
a train.
Tri-state area,
yeah,
right?
You can take a train to. But it was a great move, and just like it was more of like a life experience move. It was just kind of to live in. I think everybody should live in New York for a year. It's good for you. I think it's good for young people anyway. I mean, I couldn't go back now because you got to be making a ton of money. You get comfortable out here of having some space, and you don't want to live.
You
like
do
an
get
animal.
kind of spoiled.
But when you're young and single, and there's no better place. There's no, New York is really exciting, and it teaches people to live together. I mean, a lot of
tolerate each other on top of each other.
You have to.
My sister lives in New York.
And you forget, like, most of this country, and certainly a lot of its cities, are really segregated. And if you're, like, especially if you don't have to take public transportation, or people just don't deal with one another. And so they don't, in New York, you can't be sheltered. I mean, the minute you step on the sidewalk.
Someone's, like, spitting on you, stepping on you.
And you're going to hear 8 different languages all day, and you got to sit in the same subway with them and next to them. And it just forces people to be tolerant, and you need more of that, because if people don't deal with one another, that's when eventually, riots happen and things like that. It's true. You forget it's pretty segregated, this country. And Chicago was a very segregated city. and a lot of them are. People live in their own little
They're bubbles,
sections.
right?
Yeah, and if you're sealed up in a car all day, LA's pretty segregated.
LA's very segregated. It is. I got sidetracked because I was asking you about Mount Kilimanjaro, and then I don't know what happened.
Right. I don't know what happened. So anyway, I learned to travel, and then so I would, whenever I had some spare time or money, I would try to leave the country every time I could. Oh, somebody's here. Is somebody here?
That's my co-host, Mitzi. Actually, Mike, she's actually listed on the Out of the Box podcast website as a co-host.
Oh.
Because she does her 1 or 2 episode mark every episode, and she gives her opinion. So she was just letting you know that she likes that you travel.
She's digging the story.
She does.
She wants to hear more about Kilimanjaro.
She does.
So anyway, yeah. So I would take trips and then whatever. So years go by, and I've been every continent except Antarctica. But this year,
are you going?
No, I'd love to.
Okay.
I would love to go.
When you said this
soon.
year and trailed off, I was like, oh.
No, but this year, like the last few years, I was hosting a show on TBS called TBS Movie Extra. It was a weekly show that went on for 9 years. And I always said when it ended, I was going to take a big trip. So then I did a 3-month thing where I kind of went around the world. So I've been doing a lot more writing this year. And this year, my goal was I wanted to climb Mount Kilimanjaro while I could still do it. And so I did it in February, and it was great. And I took a little safari beforehand. And because you're going to go that far, you got to spend some time. The hike only took 5 days.
Only 5 days.
Well, and that's, yeah. And that's actually the minimum. That's like the shortest. You have to go so slow to acclimate because of the elevation. The elevation, yeah. It's really high. And is like 19,300 and something feet.
What made you think Kilimanjaro? As a life goal?
I knew.
Is it just a bucket list thing?
Well, I had heard some people who did my show had climbed it, and the more they told me about it, I was like, wow, yeah. It was like.
So what kind of stuff were they saying?
Well, I knew it wasn't because I'm not a mountain climber, so I don't know how to. It's not a technical climb. You don't have
where you're using ropes and harnesses.
Yeah, none of that.
You're just hiking, right?
It's just a trail basically. So the thing that gets everybody is the altitude. So I'd done like a 14,000 foot mountain in Colorado, but that was as high as I'd been. So
you mean with your breathing and everything?
Yeah. And
did you camp along the way? Obviously, since it was
there's one route. There's many different routes up there, but the route I took was the one that had built-in huts, and it's also the shortest. Yeah. Well, I had just done a safari for like a week before that in Africa, and I'm setting up a tent and breaking it down every day, and I was kind of over the tent thing. But the downside is it's the shortest route, and you think, well, that's great. It's short, but you really should take the longer acclimatization day. Every expert say, because a lot of people do get altitude sickness, and I did a little bit.
So what is altitude sickness? I've never climbed a giant mountain, so I don't know. But I can assume. But I started to feel it. I mean, after about 12,000 feet, you start feeling you get a little shortness of breath, and most people, but like for me. I've felt this in like skiing in Colorado and stuff. It's just hard sleeping. Like sleeping is a little more difficult. But other than that, I was fine. But once I hit 15,000, that's when it was really like headaches, nausea. So what is causing that? Just the pressure on your body?
Yeah, it's the lack of oxygen, and there's a word for it. But you can get this pulmonary thing that can be really dangerous. People die up there.
Oh my gosh!
I didn't know that. I probably should have looked into it a little more, but
on the 5th day, there was all these dead bodies on the ground.
Yeah. When an ex-girlfriend of mine did it, and one of the reasons she was telling me about it, she did it a few years ago, and it was weird because I ended up having the same tour guide, lead guide as she did. But a guy died on when she was there. This Korean guy.
Was he older or just his
no?
Body
He's in his 40s, I think. But I probably a drinker and a smoker, but. Altitude affects everybody a different way. Like a Navy SEAL could be wiped out, and then a 65-year-old lady's going right up. I mean, you never know. So I was in a group of 10, and 9 of us made it to the peak. So that was pretty good. But one guy.
Whoa! So what happened to the last one?
Well, we were going. Yeah, we were going the final ascent. We were doing the final ascent at night. We left at about midnight. We leave the hut at 15,000 feet, and you just walk for like 6-7 hours up the mountain, and then he started to, and he was in good shape. He was like a runner, a guy in his 30s, and all of a sudden he started walking a little crooked, started slurring his words. And it was like he was drunk or something. And we left him behind with a guide, and we didn't think he was going to be. And that was it. We see him on the way back down. Like we thought immediately they'd take him back down.
Oh my gosh, I'm scared.
And so we go up and we ended up, summiting, and then we come back down, back to the huts, and we find out later that he had made it as far as there's a point called Gilman's Point, where it's like when you finally kind of hit the ridge at the top of the ridge, and you think we're at the top, and then you realize to get to the actual peak, there's another hour and a half walk along the rim to get even higher. But he made it to that first point, and we couldn't believe it. This guide stayed with him the entire way and walked him up, and he never made it to the peak, but he did make it to that point, which was pretty impressive because we thought he was, they were going to take him home,
Yeah.
No, he made it.
Oh, okay. I was scared. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, no. It was pretty incredible. But no, it was a great experience, but it was hard. And then I flew to Zanzibar from there just for a few days afterwards, just kind of recover and just laid around a pool. And just it felt like I was hungover. And I realized, I did get sick. I thought I was going to heave 4 times up that mountain, but I didn't. I made it.
So what is included when you go on a safari? No, the safari was part of your 3-month vacation.
No. This was this year. The 3-month thing was end of 2011.
Okay.
And so that's when I went to Vietnam, was part of that. I did 2 weeks in Vietnam. I did 2 months in Southeast Asia, and then I was in Eastern Europe, and then I went to Israel and Jordan, and then Turkey. I went to Istanbul, and then I went to Southeast Asia.
So is it true that everyone around the world speaks English, or did you have guides?
I never had a problem. I mean, we're very fortunate knowing English around the world. If there is a universal language or international language, it's that. Because even throughout Asia, if they'll know their local language, and if they know one other language, it's English. So I never
imperialism has won.
Yeah, and our media. I mean, they watch the TV and movies, and they learn through that. But if you know English, I mean, and they also know that most Europeans, especially younger ones, know English. So now you've covered them. You've covered all of America, the Australians. So that's a lot of us.
So you never had any issues.
No, the hardest place,
even in remote
Taiwan
areas? Taiwan
was tough. And I've never been to mainland China, but I guess when you get there, it's not a lot of people know English. I mean, you'll go to most of the cities, you'll get by. I mean, I tell people don't worry about it. Like a friend of mine just left the country for the first time. He went to visit a friend in Prague, and he's like, "What? I don't know." It's like they all know it. They all know it. And then a lot of them learned it in schools, especially in the Eastern Europe. And I've been to Croatia this year, and I've been there a few times, and yeah, they all know it. Never had a problem.
Yeah.
The older people, little, you'll run into it.
Do you speak any other languages?
I know a little bit of Spanish, and I can get by in Spanish, but I want to be more fluent. I really do.
I know. It's my dream to learn 5 languages.
Yeah. Spanish especially, to live here. I mean, come on. We're in LA. It would help a lot. And plus, that opens up all of South America, other than Brazil. I mean, it opens up all of South and Central America to travel to.
And for guys, it opens up the dating pool, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Even in Cuba had a little tough time. I had my broken Spanish. I had to get around Cuba. I kind of snuck into Cuba because we're not allowed to go there. But
I think you can go if there's the workaround where you go to another country and then fly in, right?
Yeah, that's how I did. I went through Cancun.
The workaround.
Yeah, I did the workaround. Yeah.
So I want to hear about the safari because I have never been on an African safari.
Yeah.
I'm assuming. Or is that a stereotype?
This was in, we started in Nairobi in Kenya and then went in Tanzania. And it was great. We camped out in the Serengeti and saw all the animals. And
are you allowed to touch them?
No, that would not be recommended.
Because I see some of these pictures, and I know that there's been a lot of, I don't know if you heard the story of people taking selfies with bears and how the U.S. government is trying to strongly discourage that because people are.
Yeah.
Stop taking selfies with the bears in Yellowstone.
It's not really good to lose your fear of bears. I won't recommend that.
But I'll see people, going to Thailand or Australia, and they're hugging these baby tigers and all this stuff, and I'm like, what are they?
Well,
what
especially
is this?
in Thailand, there's a guy just actually did my podcast, and he was talking about this. There's a temple they call it the Tiger Temple outside of Bangkok, and these monks raise.
That's why I'm asking you if you're touching animals because I'll see people posting these pictures.
These are trained. It's almost like zoo circus kind of things.
And I'm like, I don't know if you should be hugging that tiger like that.
Yeah, I still haven't done that, but I've been to Thailand a few times, but I just haven't gone to that one. But
And like in Australia too, I have friends that have gone to Australia on honeymoon, and they're like, "Here's me hugging a koala." I'm like, "Is that a good idea?"
Yeah, the koalas are pretty safe. But there's a kangaroo farm. You can go stand next to them. They're like deer, It's like okay, and they're around. I've been to some like where was I? Japan. I went to some place and there was like monkeys everywhere, and they would just. It was on a mountain, and there was a reserve there, and they would just follow you everywhere, and there's all these
rules. Would they touch
rules.
you or climb on you or anything?
Well, you got to be careful. In this one in Bali, they did climb on you. They give you food to feed them, and I was like, I'm not feeding them because they will like jump on your back and like grab the thing. They're monkeys. They can be vicious, But there's all these rules they tell you, like don't look them straight in the eye because they see that as an act
as
of
a threat.
Like,
right?
we're gonna fight now, that kind of thing. So don't look at them right in the eye. Like there was all these little.
Don't poke them. Don't French kiss the monkeys.
Exactly. Don't bring an organ and grind it. So they'll dance. Yeah, there's all these rules, and I kind of back off the animals. But unless I'm underwater, I'm a diver, so I love diving with.
I've never done scuba, but I've done snuba, which is like the fake scuba.
Yeah, wait, is that with there's a tube? You don't wear a tank, right?
You don't wear a tank. There's a tank that's on a raft above you, and then there's a cord. I don't know. It
just
goes,
an air hose.
It goes down, and I got dizzy dropping the altitude down. Is that called altitude when it's down? No. Depth, seawater. What is it called?
You were submerged. Down into the
What is it called?
My mind is blanking right now. I've been doing this for 25 years of diving.
Well, then I'm calling it underwater altitude.
Yeah. No,
I've done fake scuba diving.
Okay. So you have trouble equalizing and do your ears? Can you pop your ears?
My ears popped, and then I had a lot of anxiety underwater trying to breathe through that little thing.
Are you claustrophobic at all?
I'm not.
Because that freaks out some people.
I'm not. I don't know. I just had this fear that I was going to run out of oxygen, and
oh, really?
So I don't know if that's claustrophobia. It's just, I guess getting used to breathing underwater was hard for me.
Yeah.
And then I just felt like, what if someone cuts this oxygen cord? I'm like way under. I'm pretty far down here.
How deep did you go?
I don't know numbers. I've only been a few times. I'm not an expert like you.
No, that's okay. Did you see anything good? Where were you?
I was in Cancun.
Oh, right.
And I saw schools of fish and creatures and things. It was like a reef.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the name of it was. I went to this they have these Mexican theme parks that are like also water parks, and they have, do you know what I'm talking about?
Mexican theme parks.
So they were like water parks, but also they had animals there. It was really strange.
Okay.
And you could swim with dolphins, and
it's like SeaWorld but with rides, kind of,
but like more dangerous, but only like you could do it because it was Mexico.
Right. No rules. I went diving in Vietnam.
Yes, no rules.
Yeah, that was just like, are you even going to check my,
driver's
card,
license?
my
No.
Certification? Nah, you're good. We'll trust you. Okay, we're great.
I had a friend that went to Vietnam, and he had me as his travel agent translator because he had a travel agent and she spoke English, but it was very broken English.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because she was so Vietnamese people do this, and I've heard this. I don't know if you experience this, but they have separate prices for Vietnamese people and for
You see the white guy coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was trying to book a private boat in Halong Bay.
Oh yeah, okay.
And
I did that. I would stay on the junk boat.
Yeah.
And he wanted a private one.
Yes, but the rate that they were giving him was really,
I'm sure it's
really
outrageous.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
So he kept arguing, and he said, "Rosie, will you please talk to this woman? I will buy you lunch." So I said, "Sure." And he's like, "Okay, I'm going to put my friend Rosie on the phone." And then as soon as she heard that I spoke Vietnamese and I was a Vietnamese person, she like freaked out because the price she was giving him was like obviously the white person
outrageous.
price.
Yeah. Not a lot of locals are going to Halong Bay and just spending a night either. I mean, it's a beautiful place. I mean, it's these mountains coming up out of the water, and it's really nice. It's a little outside of Hanoi.
Yeah, so I was able to get him a cheaper price, but I still did not get the local price. There's like Vietnamese, they have like a 3-tier system.
Oh, yeah.
They even have a name for Vietnamese that are not from Vietnam, and they'll give them a different price as well.
Mm-hmm. Cuba is really weird. Like Cuba is the only place I've been where they have like 2 forms of money.
They do.
Yeah, they'll have like a convertible peso, which is what they give the the tourists. So and it's 1-to-1 to the U.S. dollar.
So it's like money discrimination.
Yeah, no, it's a different money, and the locals get the local Cuban peso, which is worth nothing. I mean, it's almost like food stamps, you know. So they get an allotment, and so we eat at the places that accept. We eat and shop. It's kind of meant for us to separate us, and to soak us for more, because their currency is like that. It's really poor, Cuba. So I mean, their money. If you can get stuff and eat it where they eat and go where they go, it's insanely cheap. Yeah, because I mean, their money is worth.
So you couldn't trade. Tiny. You couldn't find a local and trade.
There are places you could do it. I was only there for a few nights, so I didn't rock the boat really. But if I was to go out.
Comedian Mike Siegel in Cuban prison. What?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that was fascinating.
So, what made you decide to start the Travel Tales podcast? You have this passion of travel. I
did, and I like to talk about it. And I didn't want to do. All my friends have podcasts, and some of them are really successful comedians. But I just didn't want another, show where two comedians are, bullshitting basically. And it's just something I never get bored of talking about too. That's always important, so it's a little niche, but also I wanted to move more. I'm like pitching my own hosting gigs too, and like trying to produce my own TV shows. So I wanted to. It
was a vehicle for you.
Yeah, I wanted to give myself a little more credibility as a travel quote unquote expert. When I go pitch a travel show.
I don't know if you know this, Mike, but if you have a website, you're an expert on anything these days.
Is that it? Okay, yeah. Or self-publish a book.
I have a friend who is, you guys listening all know who I'm talking about. I love him very much, and he's awesome, and he's been a guest on the show. He is a Bitcoin advocate, expert.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't get it. It just kind of scares me.
He is a Bitcoin expert because he has a website and self-publishes.
Exactly. No, I've lost out on hosting gigs or something, and they say, "Oh, we need a so-and-so," like I don't know, pick a dating expert. And I was like, "Okay, what makes them? Are they a therapist, a doctor?" No, they just wrote like some blog. You know what I mean? And just like, "Oh, that's an expert now." Okay.
With the internet now, you can do anything.
Yeah. So it's kind of like I hate to use the term branding, but you kind of do need to find your little niche in this business. So. And that's one of mine, and it's something. I love it, and I never get tired of doing it, and I don't get tired of talking about it.
Well, just so you know, when I release the episode, I will put Mike Siegel, travel expert.
Oh, good, thank you. I'll take it. Why not?
So, since you are a travel expert, let's talk about some travel tips for those listening who maybe are not world travelers. You've traveled the world. You've been on almost every continent except for Antarctica.
Yes.
You said, right?
You just had a travel hacker here, though, didn't you?
I did. I had Kevin Lay. He was a travel hacker, and he talked about traveling on the cheap.
Yeah. I mean, I use a lot of those. That's what's helped me get around the world, actually. So anybody who's listening, I mean, I think the biggest misconception about travel is that people think it's really expensive, and it doesn't really have to be. I think the flights can be, but you can get around those. I mean, I do a lot of things like Kevin was talking about with like travel credit card deals. You sign up, you get 50,000. Like I just took my mom to Ireland.
Oh
like
my
on her
God!
dream
What
trip.
a good boy!
I'm a good boy, yeah.
Ladies.
Mm-hmm. And so, but I mean, all our flights were with miles. So on American miles, and I signed up for a credit card where I got like 100,000 miles to sign up. I mean, there was a lot of spending limit requirements and all that, but I did it, and since it's off-peak season, which is another tip for people, like if you go anywhere like October, November, it's a great time to travel anywhere because you can get great deals and flights. You can use miles. There's less blackout dates. It's because it's off-peak season. So go in those spring or fall, and you try to go in the dead of winter. If you want to go to somewhere like Europe in August, you're going to be paying top dollar. If you try to use it in like over the holidays, you're going to be paying top dollar. So... if you can be flexibility is key in everything.
But what about just getting around, like you said? So you broke a stereotype out there that a lot of people think you need to speak the language, and you're saying no, you don't.
No. Fear brings people worry about that a lot. I've never really had a problem getting around in any country.
I guess the reason it's important to me is because the majority of my listeners, I do have some international listeners. Yay!
Yay!
But the majority of my listeners are from the U.S. and the United States is notoriously known for lack of international travel as a society, unfortunately. And I think that causes a lot of kind of what you said when you were talking about people being isolated in their little bubbles.
Yes.
You know, I have had relatives or friends that don't travel a lot.
I have a brother who's never left the country. And
I have friends that have never been on airplanes. And so there's a fear level because, you know, or a fear of culture. You know, I went to the Middle East, but it was for a comedy, for military tours. And people were saying, well, weren't you scared? And what about being covered up? And, you know, I was on bases, but when I did travel off base and talk to people and meet locals, I mean, they're people just like us, and everyone was so wonderful and giving. And I even had a gentleman, you know, give me the scarf off his back, literally off his back, because I wanted one of those Middle Eastern scarves that they wear over their head. They're like red and white, and I couldn't find one anywhere.
Couldn't find one?
I couldn't find one. I forgot what country I was in because I did a multiple country tour, but for some reason I couldn't find one in that country. And we were it was during wartime, so we were heavily, as comedians, guarded, and I wasn't really able to go as freely as some of the other military tours I've done.
Oh, sure. I never did one. I've always wanted to.
Oh, you haven't done one?
No, I've always wanted to.
Oh my gosh, I'll have to recommend you.
Yeah. No, I would go in a second.
Yeah, and so there was a small little, I forgot what they're called. There's like a slang term for them that's like derogatory. But there was these little shops where they sell stuff, and one of the guys had it wrapped around his head, and I asked him, can I buy it from you? And he just said, oh, and he just gave it to me. Yeah. And I've had other experiences where in countries where people were supposedly very anti-woman and anti-American, and I think as long as you're not blatantly disrespectful to people, then they're pretty nice back.
Yeah, kindness goes a long way, and tolerance goes a long way. I mean, I understand the fear of the unknown. I understand not having the money to go anywhere. I understand not having the vacation time or whatever. But what I don't understand is people who don't have the curiosity, who are like, nah, I'm good with not knowing. That. I was like, really? You've seen pictures of Paris your entire life? You never? Nah, I'm good. Okay, that I don't get. You know, I was like, okay, wow, we're just different people. But whenever you hear people go, America's the greatest country in the world, man. Like,
you haven't been anywhere else, have you?
I can guarantee you those people have not traveled much.
And not to say that Mike and I don't love America.
No, I mean, but you... And I would
tell this
to my brother. There's some
beautiful places out there.
I would tell this to my brother, and I would say, you know, he's big into fishing and camping and all this other stuff. And I was in New Zealand once, and I was like, you would love it. This is like your perfect place. It's gorgeous. It's clean. I mean, they speak English, for crying out loud. I mean, you would love it. And it was like a defensive knee jerk. He just went, well, there's a lot of cool places here too. I go, yeah, it's not an either or situation. Just because I like somewhere else doesn't mean I hate America. You know what I mean? It's just like you can like both. You can, and I think it's good. It's good.
It's like chocolate and vanilla.
Yeah.
Both are delicious, but they're delicious for different reasons, or any other thing. You know, you don't say, well, steak or shrimp, steak and shrimp.
Yeah. But it's also one of the reasons I've traveled alone a lot, because I learned a long time ago, especially as you get older and people are working and they're starting families, if you wait for people to go with, you'll never go. So you have to like block off the time, whatever your job is, say, no, you book the ticket, and it's like, I'm going to do it in 4 months. I've booked this, and you tell everybody, you organize your life and say, I'm not going to be here for 2 weeks. And then you'll do it. But you have to want to go. I can't install the curiosity in people. So I'm not going to drag if you travel with someone who doesn't want to be there, you're going to have a horrible time. You know, you have to like, well, this is boring. Or no, you can't.
I would say if you're not a world traveler as well, it's kind of like eating sushi. If you've never had sushi, you don't want to go sashimi right away. You want to do a California roll or something that's going to ease people in. So go to London, go to Australia, go to New Zealand, go to they speak English. You're not going to be.
It's not a big culture shock.
It's not going to be a culture shock.
I'm not going to throw you right into India. You know what I mean? I'll start you off slow. Yeah, we'll go to England. Australia is really easy. I mean, it's other than the flight. Once you get there, I mean, it's my only problem with Australia. It's just not that much different from here. Yeah. You know, I'd like to have a little more. You know, the countries are about the same age. There's nothing really that old. Anything older than like a couple hundred years was Aborigine. It's been wiped out. It's been really wiped out. So it's really sad. But I mean, it's gorgeous, and the people are really nice.
But I mean, I'm saying for those of you who are listening, who are maybe thinking about traveling, or have been thinking for a long time, and maybe have a spouse or someone who's difficult or might be scared to travel, you don't have to go to New Delhi away.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to go.
Or Vietnam.
Yeah, Vietnam is very, for me, obviously, since I grew up with the culture, it's fine. But if you're, living in Cleveland or something and you've never left Ohio.
But again, it's good to be, a lot of people in this country, specifically white people, it's good to go to a place where you are a minority, and like I remember one of my favorite stories. I was walking through Hanoi, and I think it was like New Year's Day or New Year's Eve day or something, and there was going to be a big parade or something, and there was all these parade floats, and I'm by myself. I'm just walking around this park and just looking at the floats, and this girl comes up to me and asks if in broken English, but asks if she could take a photo with me. I was like, all right, sure. And so her friend
she recognizes me from
I don't
TBS.
know. Yeah, she's got basic cable here in Hanoi, and so we take a photo. And once other people saw that I was okay with taking a photo, people started coming out of the woodwork. Some dude asked, could we have a photo? And it's like, take a photo with the white guy. And it's crazy. And all these people just started gathering around me, like snapping photos. Yeah, and it's like, what are you gonna do with those? Me and here's this guy, But oh my God, we're traveling through India, and there was these blonde women in our group that I was with, and I just felt just the stares. People would always want to take a photo with them. Like some people would give them their baby. Could you hold my baby? It's like, she's not magic. She's just a white person, Can
you hold my baby?
They would have a photo with my baby, and it's like, what are you gonna show that to your friends? Like, here's the white lady holding our baby. Here's the magical.
They do exist.
Yeah,
it's not just on the TV screen.
But India, yeah, that was really wow. And I heard China is kind of the same way. I mean, it's just they don't meet them. They don't meet them like that.
It's true, and I think for some people it can be an ego boost. I have a friend. He does not look like Brad Pitt at all.
Mm-hmm.
Let me reiterate that, ladies. He went to Japan, and every Japanese girl was like, "Oh my God, you look like Brad Pitt." And he was like, I love Japan.
Oh yeah, it's me.
Every girl thinks I'm Brad Pitt.
Mm-hmm.
And that also happened to another friend of mine who I traveled to France with, who is a light-skinned black gentleman, and everyone thought he was Kobe Bryant. I'm like, he is not Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
Now granted,
Denzel is here. Oh, Denzel.
Granted, we were in the French countryside, but everyone, and there are a lot of African people in France actually, but everyone was like, he's Kobe Bryant. I'm like, he is not Kobe Bryant. Yeah. He's a tall, light-skinned black dude.
Yeah.
So it can be kind of a little fun.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing how Western Europe is getting more and more. It's very integrated now. Oddly enough, Germany is one of the most culturally diverse countries there are in Europe now, which is and tolerant. Which who would have said that 60 years ago? But Eastern Europe, it gets really white. And so you get a little more stares, and there's more right wing, racist crap. Russia's really.
I think Germany is like that because of the history. Because
they're overly compensating now.
Overly, and that happened when I was on another military tour, and I was in Germany, and our I guess tour guide host was German, and he said Germans are very paranoid about the stereotype from the Nazis, so they kind of overdo it.
Yeah, and it's illegal to show any kind of like a swastika or something like that. They'll come down hard on it now, but see how weird it's become. I did a stand up when I was there a few years ago in Berlin. There was an English comedy night somewhere. And Avi Lieberman?
I do know Avi.
Yeah, he kind of set this. He's like, if you're going to Berlin, look up this girl. So this Australian woman books an English comedy night at some bar. So we're doing it, and there was me. There was a Canadian guy on there. There's a woman, English. There's a couple English comics. And this guy I had to follow was this English comic, and he went up, and I'm not kidding you. This is in Berlin. And most of the crowd are not German. They're people from all over, a lot of
expats.
Expats, yeah. But this guy goes up. He's dressed as Hitler, full-on Hitler outfit, mustache, the whole thing, and sang Frank Sinatra songs. And he called himself Frank Sinatra.
Oh, my God. And how did he do?
Killed. And I was like, I got to follow Frank Sinatra in Berlin.
I'm going to Google him.
He's online. And he just came up, and I was like, "You got balls, friend. You man, God bless you."
Were you able to do straight stand-up?
I did okay. Yeah, the host went up and burned some time in between and gave me a buffer. But
Thank you, host.
thank you.
A good host.
She knew. I mean,
a good
come on.
host.
And by the way, how is he not the closer? I mean, come on. We got to follow that.
It's very hard to follow that. Any variety acts, children are impossible
music.
to follow. I had to follow a child once on stage.
A child doing what?
Stand up.
Oh.
And it was...
That's not funny. People just like, oh, that's cute.
Exactly. It was like standing
oh.
ovation. It was a 10-year-old. I've had to follow a child twice. The first time was a 10-year-old little boy doing stand up for the first time. And of course, he did cute little knock jokes. And every joke that he did was like applause break, standing ovation, which is great. But then I get up there and they're like, we don't care about you.
Yes. But you know what?
Put the 10-year-old boy back.
10-year-old boy. Let him do that at the school play. The talent show. Don't bring that out.
The second time was another, I think it was a little girl, and she did knock jokes as well and silly little internet jokes, and everything was yay.
Did you ever have to follow a joke contest where they bring in people from the crowd? I had to do that. There was this guy in the Midwest who used to book, it was in Michigan, and he used to book these rooms, and then it was like a big thing to get the crowd into it. Before the show, they called it a joke off. So people would come up, and inevitably there's always some, these two Jews walking, holy Jesus, here we go. And it's always like a racist joke, a horrible thing, and just awful.
I didn't have that happen, but I did a gig in Florida. I was actually the first comedian ever to perform in the city of Milton, Florida, and the mayor came.
Wow.
And this was the kind of city. So I went early, and the bartender was from Canoga Park, California. So I said, what kind of, jokes do you guys do around here? What kind of town is this? And he said, when people joke about sleeping with their cousin? I said, yes. He goes, that actually happens here.
Oh.
So I did my show. And then after the show, do you remember ZZ Top?
Oh, yeah.
So a couple of guys that looked like ZZ Top, but they were wearing tank tops. Let me repeat that.
This is like the Duck Dynasty guys.
Yes. They came up to me and they go, you're really funny. And one goes, I didn't really know what you were talking about, but you were good. Let me buy you a beer. And
For a Chinese gal.
So they cornered me, and they quote unquote gave me some jokes to use.
Oh yeah. They would do that. Here's one for you.
Many of the jokes started with the N-word.
Yeah. Inevitably. Always.
They go, I got some jokes for you. They're like, you're really funny, but I didn't really know what you were talking about. But I got some really good ones.
Oh. It's always bad. Always bad. Here's one you could use. No. Did you not see what I just did for 45 minutes? What made you think I would tell a racist joke? Oh, God.
So it was interesting, to say the least. But they asked for my autograph on a napkin, and I'm sure...
Milton, Florida. It's a very small town outside of Pensacola. Okay. And my family moved down. Now I'll be there for Thanksgiving. They live in a town called Sebring, which is down like an hour south of Orlando.
I was in Panhandle, Florida.
Yeah. Oh no, the Redneck Riviera. I played it. Believe me, I did the Air Force Base down there. Was it Pensacola? It's in Tyndall Air Force Base.
Yeah, I think it's in Pensacola.
Yeah, Florida is just weird, man. It's the southern.
Florida's weird because there's like all these like
it's the South. The northern half is the South.
No, there's all these rich Jews from New York.
No, but they're down in like Broward.
And then there's like rednecks, and then there's like it's so random.
No, it's like because my old Jewish grandparents from Jersey retired with all of them down in like.
I wasn't stereotyping. I was being serious.
No, it's true. down in Fort Lauderdale area, all that. So it's weird from like Palm Beach on the East Coast down to Miami and all that in between, Fort Lauderdale.
It's like rich.
It's like this weird
Jews, right?
It's Jews. It's like Cubans, Haitians, Jamaicans, all in a weird, just mishmash. And then you go up north, and it's the South. I mean, there's a redneck, and then the Central, like where my family is. It's like really, there's all these Bible colleges. It's really churchy. And then there's like the East Coast where it's like old people dying, and
people don't need to go to New Zealand. They can just go to Florida, and they'll get
every
single.
They can have it.
Well, we have to wrap up. I'm so sad.
Apologies to people in Florida
that I don't get to keep you for another hour. What's next for you? How can people find you? How can people follow you on Twitter? Listen to your podcast?
They follow my personal page is funnymike.com and at funnymike on Twitter. And then the traveltalespodcast.com and Travel Tales Pod on Twitter.
Well, it was wonderful having you. Thank you for being a guest on our podcast.
No, it was fun. Thank you. And I didn't even sneeze once with the dogs. It's pretty good. Good old Claritin. Claritin D, folks. Ask for it by name.
But you need an ID.
Yes. And don't make meth out of it, please.
Guys, this has been Out of the Box Podcast with Rosie Tran. Don't forget to visit our sponsor, hugmetees.com. Spread love. Give a hug, hugmetees.com. As always, we are on soundcloud.com and Stitcher Radio and iTunes. And guys, don't forget, we're now accepting Bitcoin and other alternative currency donations. If you would like to support the podcast, which some of you have told me that you would like, I am accepting all alternative currencies, including Hypercoin. So click on the link and support us with Bitcoin. Or if you want to send cash, send me an email and I'll give you my PayPal. This has been Out of the Box Podcast with Rosie Tran.